Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our April onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. My name is Jack Headland. I'll be your host tonight. We'll get going in just a minute or two. I want to give it a little bit of time for people to get logged in and get situated and everything. So just a little bit of housekeeping while we wait for everyone to get logged in. Your audio and video are turned off, so we can't see or hear you. So no worries if you have noise in the background or dogs barking or kids running around or something. We can't hear anything. If you do have a question you'd like us to answer, whether it's, anything onX related or something you didn't understand from the presentation, please use the Q&A feature, which should be along the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A box there. There's also a chat box. And chat is great just for letting us know, where you're tuning in from, things like that. If you want to chat with anybody else in the class, chat is not the place for questions. There's just not a good way for our customer support folks to answer those. So they won't really be monitoring the chat for questions, but we do have two folks from our phenomenal customer support team answering them in the Q&A there. This class is being recorded, so if you do have to dip out early or there's a part you want to go back and rewatch, we'll have it recorded and we upload it to our YouTube channel. We have a Masterclass playlist there where you can view all of our old classes. And we'll also send you an email. That'll come about this time tomorrow evening with the link to the YouTube video so you can go back and rewatch it at your leisure. And do stick around towards the end of the class. We're doing a giveaway, giving away some onX Hunt t-shirts. So you do have to be present to enter that. So if you're watching this, class after April 9th, that giveaway link won't be open to you, but we will post that in the chat towards the end of the class for everybody that wants to get entered. All right, looks like we got quite a few folks rolling in already, so we'll get into the class. What we're going to cover today, we're going to start off with the different membership levels of onX and how they differ and what one might be appropriate for you, what each one gets you. Then we'll dive into the app itself. I'll have the app pulled up on the screen for you so you can watch me as I go through it. We'll talk about map layers, which is really kind of the bread and butter, the heart of the onX system. We'll go through using offline maps for when you don't have cell phone service. We'll talk about some different map tools like waypoints, using the compass and my location buttons, go over our different base map and imagery options, how to perform a search, whether it's a search for GPS coordinates or somebody's name or a landmark. And then we'll save some time at the end for some live Q&A, as well as that giveaway I mentioned earlier. So first things first, we have a couple of different membership levels within the onX Hunt app. You have a basic membership, which is an unpaid membership. It's a free level. So how you would end up with a basic membership is if you start a trial, which everybody, if you've never used onX before, you can always start a free 7-day trial of the app. You don't have to pay anything, so risk-free there. But then if you do a 7-day trial and you choose not to purchase a membership, or you have a paid membership and it expires, you go to a basic membership. And the basic membership is basically you're able to view the map, you're able to see your location, and that's about it. You're not going to get access to any of the layers. You won't be able to see the property ownership or anything like that. So that's the basic unpaid membership. If you choose to go to a paid membership, we have a couple different levels there. We have the premium level or the premium membership, and that's kind of broken out into the premium 1 state and premium 2 state membership. So the premium membership gives you access to all the map tools that we'll talk about later, like waypoints and tracker and line distance and things like that. You're able to save offline maps, and you're able to turn on map layers, and you'll get access to either 1 state's layers with the 1 state membership or 2 states with the premium 2 state membership. So for example, I'm in Montana. If I only hunted Montana, the premium 1 state might be the membership level for me. and I would get access to Montana property ownership information, the government lands, the different hunting districts, things like that. If I hunted Montana and we're pretty close to Idaho, I could choose to go with the premium 2-state membership. So it gives me access to Montana and Idaho. You can choose any 2 states you want. They don't have to be bordering each other or anything. So if you're from Pennsylvania, but you go to South Dakota to pheasant hunt every year, you could have Pennsylvania and South Dakota, or Michigan and Colorado. You get the idea. Our full spectrum membership is our elite membership. So that gives you access to map layers for all 50 states and Canada. So if you hunt multiple states a year, that's definitely the route to go. But the elite membership also gives you access to some elite specific tools within the app, some of which we'll demonstrate tonight, some of which are beyond the scope of a 101, so we won't go into all of them. But the elite membership also gets you access to some of our elite tools and elite benefits. So I'm just going to pull up our website right now to give you guys a sense of what you get with that elite membership. Just give me one moment to pull that up. So on our website, you can look this up. We have our elite benefits and pro deals page. So some of these tools are hunt planning tools. If you're a person who hunts big game in the West, you know it's application season, whether you hunt one state or you hunt multiple. Tools like the Huntin' Fool and hunt research tools are great for giving you draw odds, as well as like the Huntin' Fool. They do a great job of breaking down different units and giving you advice on, hey, this is a physically demanding hunt. This is a physically easy hunt. This one had a big die off last winter, things like that. So you get a free Huntin' Fool membership with an elite membership. You also get access to some educational resources, whether they're classes that we've done in-house, like the Turkey Academy, the shed hunting course, or our rifle shooting course, or whether they're partner classes like ones through Outdoor Class, National Deer Association, Elk Collective, for you gun dog folks, Upland Institute, Retriever Roadmap, Gun Dog Doc. So a lot of educational stuff there. And then there's just some straight up discounts on gear that we use. So Weatherby, First Light, you can take a look at them on the screen there. Argali, Final Rise, a lot of good stuff there. I mean, if you're looking for a dog kennel, a Lucky Duck kennel, you get $100 off. There's your elite membership paid for right there. So I don't want to make this too much of a sales pitch, but this is something a lot of people don't realize, that we have all of these discounts. So if you're a person like me, I love gear. I'm always looking for something to add to my kit. Check these out. If you're an elite member, you already have access to these. You might as well save some money, on things you might already be interested in purchasing. All right, so let's talk about the onX app here. I'm going to pull the map up on my tablet. So this will be on an iPad. And there might be a bit of a lag here, sometimes going from Zoom, to the app. There's a little bit of a lag. I'll do my best to, stick with what's showing on the screen here. But if it does seem a little herky-jerky, that's why. If you are watching me on a computer, please pull up the app on your phone. That's, in my experience, one of the best ways to learn is to follow along if you can. I understand a lot of folks are watching it on their phone. That's not necessarily an option for you, but for those of you that are watching via computer, if you can pull up the app on your phone, that's something I highly recommend. So here's the onX Hunt app. I'm sitting here at the onX office in Midtown, Missoula, Montana. You can see my blue dot there. And as I zoom in on the screen, you start to see more information beginning to show up on my map. So if I zoom out again, there's not a ton going on right now. You're like, oh, it's a big deal. It's a satellite map. Once I start zooming in, though, you start to see the different land ownership information beginning to show. So that is those orange lines on the map with the white names inside of them. Those are all private parcels. If you're not seeing that and you have a paid membership, what is likely happening is you don't have that layer turned on. So I'm going to back up here. I went a little fast there. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a button that says Hunt Map Layers. So lower left-hand corner, I'm going to tap on Hunt Map Layers. And that's going to pull up a menu that looks like this. You see, I have a whole bunch of different layer folders or collections. Montana, current conditions, land and access, etc. States will always be listed at the top. So if you're not seeing private lands for the state that you're in, double check and make sure that you have that layer turned on. So I'm just going to tap on Montana. That opens up that folder that shows me the layers available for Montana. Private lands is the first one there. That can get turned off just by toggling that green switch. So now you see my map. I'm not seeing any of that private land ownership information. If I go back into my layers, I can turn it on, and there's that private land ownership information. If you don't see your state listed there at the top and you know you have a paid membership, it is possible to remove all states. So you see I have nothing listed above current conditions. What you'd need to do is scroll down and you can see it. Now this is on a bigger screen. This is on a big iPad. So yours might look a little bit different, especially if you're on a phone screen. You're just not going to see as much as I am because of the size. But when I scroll down, now I see all the states and Canada as well listed alphabetically. So you may just need to scroll down, find your state. There's Montana. Tap on it. Montana moved up to the top, and 3 of my layers are turned on by default: private lands, government lands, and hunting districts. You are not necessarily going to have all of these layers available to you in your state. Every state has different programs and different ways of doing things and different data sets that they may or may not make available to us. But every state will have private lands, government lands, possible access, and all but one will have some form of hunting districts. It might be called, game management units, might be deer permit areas, might be hunting zones. Every state calls it something different. They're all basically the same thing. It's how the state biologists break up the state for, different permits and tags and reporting and things like that. So I've got government lands, or I've got private lands turned on. I've got government lands and hunting districts right now. I'm also going to turn on possible access and block management. We'll talk about those in a bit. So as I'm scrolling around the map, I can see the names of the different landowners. If I want to get more information about anything on the map, all I have to do is tap on it. We don't have a legend for the onX map like you might be familiar with on a paper map. Our legend is accessed by tapping on the map. So if you want to know what something is, you just have to tap on it. So here I tapped on where the office is located. Gives me the owner name. In this case, it's an LLC. It might say, if you're tapping on properties in your area, most commonly it's going to be a single person's name or a married couple's name. It might be an LLC. It might be a limited partnership or a family trust or something like that. It's whatever the land is registered under with the tax assessor's office. That's where we tend to get our data when available. We get the property ownership information from the county tax assessor's office. You'll also get the tax address. Now, that is not necessarily the physical address of the parcel. It's where they get their tax information sent to, where their mail comes. So if you're looking to gain access to some private land, pro tip, this is a phenomenal time of year to start seeking access for the fall. Don't do it in August and September. Do it well ahead of hunting season, especially if you're talking about like agricultural land. Farmers are busy. In some parts of the country, they're planting right now, but at least in the northern tier where I'm located, where I grew up in Minnesota, they're not quite planting yet. This would be a good time to start mailing letters out to folks. So you can mail them a letter by using the tax address there. We also give you the county. Sometimes that's needed for harvest reporting, and then the acreage of the area of the parcel. If I zoom out a bit, I'm going to go to the east of town here. Now you'll see some of my map has some coloration over it. That's going to be the government lands. And so there's a lot of different colors here, right? Well, what do those mean? Again, tapping on the map tells me this is low National Forest. So everything that's this green color, that's what we use, whether it's national forest or national grassland, means it's managed by the US Forest Service. State lands are going to be blue. So here is Milltown State Park. If I find another piece, this is another state of Montana piece, is blue. BLM land is going to be this yellow color. And the more you do this, the more time you spend in the app, the more it's just going to be second nature to you. You'll look at it and you'll automatically know that state, that's BLM. If I scroll over here to this kind of darker yellow, that's the Flathead Reservation. So that's tribal lands. Again, if you tap on it, we'll tell you. If I go up to Glacier National Park, national parks are purple, military installations are pink. If I get back to Missoula here, we have some city land. It's kind of this yellow-green. The University of Montana has some land. If I tap on it, it's more of a brown color. You get the picture. Couple other layers in here I do want to mention. The possible access layer. That one is going to show you land that is private but may allow public access. So this, let me turn off a layer here because this one is a confusing piece. But this is some land here. It's tough to see. If I go topo, you can kind of see those green lines, those dashed lines across it. That means that this is private land that may allow public access. In this case, it's owned by the Nature Conservancy. They own land all over the country, and very often they allow recreational access to their lands in Western Montana and throughout the West. And honestly, we had some in Minnesota when I was growing up. All throughout the country, there's a lot of timber company land. So whether it's owned by Weyerhaeuser, Plum Creek, Blandon, you name it. Oftentimes they have this land that they will allow people to hunt on. So this layer is not telling you, yes, there is public access. It's saying you might need to do some homework, double check, but quite often they will allow, some form of hunting access there. They might have restrictions as far as motor vehicles or outfitting, whether it's allowed or not, whether recreational target shooting is allowed or not. So do your homework, make sure you're checking, a simple Nature Conservancy, Missoula, Montana lands might give you the information you need, or check with your state fish and game agency. They oftentimes have programs with these companies and nonprofits, and they'll let you know this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. I'm going to zoom out of my map here a bit. And I'm going to talk about hunting districts. So again, in your state, it might not be called hunting districts. It might be hunt areas, GMUs, wildlife management areas, etc. You'll notice this layer looks a little bit different. It says view options underneath it. And on the right-hand side, it looks like a stack of layers and it says 17. That means there are sub-layers for this layer. Most states will break up their hunting districts a little differently. They'll break them up by species. In Montana, we have 17 different sublayers, whether they're upland game bird, swan, spring turkey, fall turkey, wolf, bighorn sheep, black bear, antelope. Deer and elk is what's chosen by default for Montana. In most states, deer will be chosen, or big game, if that's how the state breaks them down. We try to choose the one that's most popular to show by default. And those layers, or excuse me, those districts are shown by the green lines on my map. and you see the green numbers inside of there. Those are all of our different hunt districts. This time of year, we hear from a lot of folks, especially in Wyoming. Wyoming's the culprit quite often because Wyoming breaks their units down more than most states do. So if you are looking at a unit map and it doesn't quite seem right, for example, in Montana, this is our deer and elk units. Okay, but I may be looking to apply for antelope. Well, those are different units in Montana. So if I go back into my hunting districts layer and click antelope hunt districts, now my map looks a little bit different. There's no units on the western side of Montana, or very few, because there's not a lot of antelope on this side of the state. They're over here. So we sometimes get a call from people and they'll say, man, your guys' numbers are wrong. I'm looking at Wyoming, I'm looking at the antelope districts, and your numbers are way off. Every time I've talked to one of those people, they've had the deer or elk units turned on. So double check that, make sure you have the correct species turned on. In a lot of states, this isn't going to matter. You know, in a lot of states, they might just have all of their big game units are the same, or you might be in a state where deer is the only real big game species that people target. Then you probably don't have to worry about it as much. But do double check because a lot of states have different waterfowl units. You know, they might break their state down north and south or things like that. Here in the West, where we're blessed to have a large suite of big game animals to hunt, you got to make sure you have the right one selected here. So I'm going to leave it on deer and elk. And then one more layer I want to talk about before we move on is this block management layer. Now in Montana, the block management program is our public access to private lands. So every state calls this something different. Your state might call it, like in Kansas, walk-in hunter access or WIHA. North Dakota, private land open to sportsmen or plots. It might just be walk-in access. It might be access yes, open fields, different names for them, but they're private lands that the private landowner receives some sort of a payment, either a stipend or, you know, per hunter day, they get money for opening up their lands. Those parcels on the map will look like this. I'm going to go back to a satellite view here. So this is one Rafado Land and Cattle Company. It's got a black border around it with red dots inside of it. And those red dots might be a little bit hard to see on your end, but if you pull it up on your app, you'll be able to see those. Again, if you want to learn more information, tap on it. Here it says private lands like we just saw. Then if I scroll down, it'll say Montana block management areas, how late it's open. This one closes at the end of spring turkey season, May 31st. And then we have a couple of links there. So that's something we will do quite often as well. The block management program is administered by Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and they have their own set of rules and regulations. And those are difficult for us to show on the map all the time. So if you click on the link that says area info, visit website, that is going to bring me to the PDF file that Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks puts out, showing you the boundaries of the unit again, the parking areas. And then if I scroll down, it gives me all the rules. Now, this is a block management area that has kind of a different set of rules, whether it's spring or fall, you know, whether you have to sign in, whether you have to, this one, there's like a lottery you have to enter for the spring turkey hunt. What type of animals are present there, what type of species are allowed to be hunted, etc. So do your research, do some homework, make sure that you are abiding by all the rules and regulations. Some walk-in areas, the landowner might say, hey, I don't want any hunting on Sunday or on a certain day of the week, or I only want hunting for deer. I don't want hunting for pheasants or waterfowl, things like that. So tap on the map, go to the state website. They're the source of truth. They administer the program. They'll be the ones to tell you exactly what you can and cannot do on that property. Okay. We're going to move on from our state folder now. So I'm going bottom left corner again, back into map layers. And now all of these other folders, so current conditions, land and access, roads, trails, and rec, trees, crops, and soil, and wildlife layers. These are all nationwide layers. You have access to them with any level of a paid membership. So what I mean by that is in the current conditions folder here, for example, we have an active wildfire layer. This is going to show anywhere fires are burning throughout the country. Even if you have a single state membership, you can still see the fires everywhere they are. So we don't limit you to only seeing fires in your state. And I understand why this is confusing. But I hear from people, they say, I'm in Colorado, I know there's fire burning, I can't find the fire layer under Colorado. It's because it's not under Colorado, because it's one of those nationwide layers. That's why we group these layers in their own distinct folders. So let's talk active wildfires. I'll see if I can find one here. So here's a couple that are burning. Wildfires are going to be shown with an icon. It looks like a cartoon flame like you see there, and then they're going to have a name on them as well. Now, these are both prescribed fires. I know that a couple of ways. First and foremost, it has RX in front of the name, meaning prescription. These fires also don't have a perimeter around them. In an actual wildfire, we will have a colored polygon on the map showing where that fire is currently burning and the extent of it. Since these are prescription ones, we don't show that. If I tap on the fire, it's going to tell me the name of the fire. It's going to tell me when we last checked the data source, and it's also going to tell me when our source last updated. So we will check our data source multiple times a day. I believe we currently do it like 4 times a day, so about every 6 hours. We ping that data source for updated information. This source hasn't updated since yesterday. So it's prescribed fire, 1 day, not that big of a deal, right? But if you are looking at a fire that's currently burning and you want to know, hey, where is it burning right now? Double check that source updated date. Our information can only be as accurate as what our source is telling us. So the managing agency, whether it's the state, firefighting units, whether it's Forest Service or BLM or National Park Service or whoever, if they don't update their data, we're not going to guess. We're not going to say, the fire is probably doing this. So if you're looking at the fire and it's showing the perimeter, this summer when we're going to have more fires than we do currently, and it's a week old, just understand, hey, this data is a week old. Something's probably changed. If it says onX last checked July 20th, source updated July 20th, then you know it's pretty accurate information. I'll see if I can find, where there's an actual fire. So there's one. This is what an actual wildfire looks like. This is in Arizona. So that's the perimeter there. So you can see the area that's been burnt. And there's a good example. The source hasn't updated since March 28th. So this perimeter has likely changed in the week and a half, 2 weeks since that source updated. All right, I'm gonna get back to Montana. I'm gonna go back into my hunt map layers. We'll go into the land and access folder. There's a few layers in here I'm going to talk about. The first one's the wilderness areas. That one's turned on by default for most folks. That's going to be your federally designated wilderness. So in Montana, we have this Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex. You can tell where the wilderness is by that different coloration over the map. So you see it's kind of grayed out and has some lines through it. That's showing you where that federally designated wilderness is. In this case, we've got the Bob Marshall Wilderness, the Scapegoat Wilderness, and the Great Bear Wilderness. You can always turn that off if you'd like, just by tapping on the switch there to turn that layer off. Another one I recommend turning on is that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas. So that one is going to show you land managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service, and a lot of these areas allow hunting and fishing on them. Not all, but a lot of them. And they often have their own set of rules. For example, this is a refuge south of Missoula that allows waterfowl hunting and archery deer hunting. That's the only two things they allow hunting for. There's turkeys and pheasants there. There's sometimes elk there, but you can't hunt them. And the refuge is broken up into different units. Along the southern end of it, you see waterfowl is highlighted. There's a part there that says no hunting. There's parts that say archery. So they have kind of zones where you can waterfowl hunt and zones where you can archery hunt. Again, tapping on it, scrolling down gives me more information. Click that more info, visit website link. That'll take you to the Fish and Wildlife Service website. It'll give you all the rules and regulations for that particular refuge. For example, this one has different days of the week where different things are allowed. They have a sign-in system, boxes where you have to sign in. For waterfowl hunting, they have permanent blinds. You have to hunt from one of those permanent blinds and you have to kind of check in and check out of it. So again, just like with the walk-in areas, do your research beforehand, make sure you're legal, make sure you're following all the rules and regulations there. Couple other layers I want to talk about. We're going to go down to roads, trails, and rec. The ones that I always have turned on are trails, trail slope, trail mileage, recreation sites, motorized roads and trails. For right now, I'm going to turn them off so you can get a better idea of what they look like. So I'm just going to go to Mount Sentinel here, popular hiking area right in Missoula or on the edge of Missoula. So on Mount Sentinel, there's a bunch of hiking trails, but you wouldn't know it unless you had that layer or those layers turned on. So if I go into my layers menu here, I'm gonna go back into roads, trails, and rec. I'm gonna turn on trails and rec sites right now. Now I start to see some trails showing up on my map. It's those black and white dotted lines. So I can see where all those popular hiking trails are. Take it a step further, turn on trail slope and trail mileages. Now it's going to color code those trails for me by how steep they are. Red being the steepest, green being the flattest, yellow and orange being in between. So I can take a look at this trail. Here's the M Trail, pretty popular hiking trail in Missoula. It's mostly orange and yellow, so moderate steepness. If I go to the north here, if I want to climb all the way up the spine here, that's red. That's pretty steep. Some of these other trails, a little bit more varied. It might be orange to yellow to green to red. So you get the picture. You can use this to help plan your route. You might say, I know not many people are going to want to hike this real steep trail. I'm going to hike it because there's going to be less people and less hunting pressure. Conversely, you might say, I don't want to hike that. I don't want to go on the super steep stuff. I'm going to pick the route that is a little bit flatter. You can also get a quick look at the mileage. Might be a little tough to see on your end, but we will give you in between dots on the map. So for example, you can kind of see on my map, there's some red and white dots on the trails. And then this section that I have kind of centered is 0.1 miles. So between those two intersections is 1/10 of a mile. So you can kind of gauge, how far you need to hike. Another layer that I turned on was the recreation sites. So that's this brown and white box on my map here. So these are going to be all kinds of different things. For example, here's one, it's a trailhead. We also have places that sell licenses, like the Kingfisher Fly Shop here, where you can buy a hunting or fishing license. We have breweries in there. We have parks, campgrounds, different things like that that might be important to you. The final layer in this collection I want to talk about is the motorized roads and trails. So I'm going to go turn that on. And this layer is going to show motorized roads primarily on public lands. Most of this data comes to us from the Forest Service. So if you have any Forest Service land near you, this is a layer you're going to want to be familiar with. We do have some data for BLM. Their data set's not quite as good, so we don't have as many roads and trails on BLM and state land, but we do have some. So these are these purple and white roads here. And again, I highly recommend tapping on them to get more information, because these roads will have a name, Upper Calais, like this one, an ID number. And then what's important is that section that says accessible by and the open dates. So this one is a little bit of a rougher road. It says accessible by high clearance 4x4 and side by side. So a high clearance 4x4 is a passenger vehicle, a car, a truck, but you're probably going to want something with some off-road capabilities here. A Jeep, a 4Runner, a Tacoma, a pickup truck, something maybe it has a little bit bigger tires on it, has a little bit of some aftermarket accessories to make it more off-road capable. Not always, some of these roads I've driven with, I have a pretty stock GMC pickup truck. Fairly often I can get down these roads, but sometimes they're a little rougher than I want to take my daily driver down. If I tap on another road here that doesn't have kind of the hash marks on it, this road will say accessible by overland. So that's talking passenger cars. Probably not going to take your Lamborghini down there, but I have seen plenty of Honda Civics and Pontiac Grand Ams driving around on some of these roads. Of course, there's no way to know for sure until you get out there. This time of year, with precipitation and runoff, there's landslides, there's rock slides, there's trees that have fallen down, but these roads are maintained and they are generally more open and more, I guess, passable than, let me see if I can find one. Like some of these roads here, they might be tough to see on your end, but just the white dashed lines, those are roads. Many of them are open, but they don't receive the same level of maintenance. So in Western Montana, we have a lot of logging and have had a lot of logging historically. So some of these roads were punched in when they logged it. And then once they were done logging, that's it. And these roads will have 20-foot spruce trees growing out of them. But they're still good to know that they're there. Even if you can't drive down them, it's good walking. If you're packing out an elk or a deer or a bear, it's easier to do that. You might be walking around trees, but it's a flat surface compared to side hilling. I like to use these for grouse hunting. That's kind of my, secret spots I like to go is walk along these closed logging roads. Good for bear hunting because bears like easy walking too, and a lot of these roads have good grass growing on them. But getting back to these maintained roads, the other thing I mentioned was the open dates. So this is going to tell me if there are seasonal closures on these roads. Some states do this, some states don't. Montana closes a lot of their roads. So they'll have some that are open all summer, and then a certain segment will close before archery season. And then another segment will close before rifle season. Then another segment will close at the end of the big game hunting season. And they close them down in the winter because it's winter range for elk. They don't necessarily want a bunch of people going in there with motor vehicles, disturbing the animals at a vulnerable time of year. Similar thing in the spring. This road here doesn't open until May 16th. In some areas, that's because the elk are having their calves and they're very vulnerable and they don't want people driving through with cars and dirt bikes and ATVs, putting more stress on them. So don't do like I did my first spring in Montana when I was going to go out bear hunting and drove out to a road and there was a gate and it was locked and I didn't check the data beforehand, but it wasn't going to open up for another couple weeks. So save yourself the trip, do that research beforehand. You can still walk these roads. I do that quite a bit is I'll park at a gate. Don't block the gate, park off to the side, but then walk around it and hike in. It's a good way to distance yourself from other hunters who might not want to leave their vehicle. All right, we're going to move on from layers. We're already 40 minutes into the class here. There's a lot more in the layers for you to discover. My best piece of advice for everybody on this call that just wants to be more comfortable with using the app is to spend some time in it. I use the analogy of getting a new bow or shotgun or rifle. I know there's people that do this, unfortunately, but if you're going to get a new bow and arrow, you're probably going to want to practice with it before season. You're not just going to take it out opening day and say, "Yep, I'm ready to go." I'm not going to take my rifle and, buy it the day before season and go out the next day. Spend some time practicing with onX. Spend 10 minutes a day, every time a commercial comes on TV or something. Pull up the app. There's nothing you can break in it. There's nothing you can do that can't be undone. So don't worry about turning something on. It can always be turned off if you don't want it. I've talked with customers. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to accidentally press a button and get charged for something." There's nothing like that in the app that you can be like charged for unwittingly. There's nothing you can break. So tap all the buttons, press all the things, open up all the layer menus. The trees, crops, and soil. Don't have time to go into it. It's beyond the scope of a 101, but play around with that. Play around with the different, road layers, the different land and access layers. And if they're not useful to you, turn them off and never think about them again. There's a whole bunch of layers in onX that I don't use all that often because they're just not pertinent to the way I hunt and where I hunt. That's fine. Let's move on and talk about offline maps now. So one of the questions we get is, does it work when I don't have cell service? Yes, the onX app works when you don't have service. What you need to do, however, is save a map for offline use. So what does that mean? If I go to the bottom left corner of my map, below the layers button, there's a button that says offline maps. Tap on it, it's going to open up a menu, and then I'm going to tap new offline map. What I'm going to be shown is a screen similar to this. Now yours might look slightly different depending on your device, but you're going to have a box with a portion of the map inside of it and the rest is grayed out. This box is the offline map I'm going to save. So what I would recommend is move the map to the general area you're going to go and then go into the offline maps menu and tap that new offline map button. I can still adjust this. I'm just using one finger to move it around. And I can zoom out, but my map is only going to get so big. You are limited to the size of your map. You can always zoom in. You can make a map smaller if you want, but you can only make it so big depending on the detail level you have chosen. So along the bottom of my screen, there are 3 dots. Low, medium, and high. That's referring to the resolution of the aerial imagery. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I need to take a sip of water. Medium is going to be chosen by default, and that's honestly what I use 99% of the time, particularly hunting in the West. It gives me a pretty good size map, about 30 by 50 or so, depending on the dimensions of your device's screen. And it still gives me pretty good imagery resolution. If I want really, really detailed imagery, the best, I'm gonna go to high, the high detail map, but you see it's quite a bit smaller. So when I go back to Minnesota to deer hunt at our family deer camp, I use the high resolution because we're hunting in a small area. We hunt a mix of public and private, but we're really only going a couple miles from camp in any one direction. We've got our stand set. That's where we're hunting. We're not probably, we're not going to hop in the car and say, "I'm going to drive to this area 30 miles away." That's something I do in Montana all the time. Upper Midwest, Minnesota, there's plethora of public lands, but we're still, we're kind of just hunting that spot. So if you have a deer camp, a deer lease, you're hunting Uncle Joe's farm, this might be the route for you because you don't need the big area. If you are an upland bird hunter, you're hunting big game in the West where you might want to save an entire unit or save a bigger area. Upland bird hunters, you might be driving around to a bunch of different spots throughout the day. I recommend the medium size map. The imagery detail level, the resolution is not that different from the high detail level. I've never found it to be a hindrance. So that's what I use out West most of the time. This low detail map, to be quite honest, I've never really used. I save a few of them as a backup. So what I will do, if I'm going to go, let's say I'm going to go hunt kind of the Rocky Mountain front area here, I might save a big map as a backup in case the area I was planning to hunt doesn't pan out. So I would have a whole bunch of my smaller maps saved, but if for some reason I check all those areas out and there's no game, shoot, we got to go somewhere else. With this low detail map, I'm going to have the hunting districts, I'm going to have my layers, the private and public. I'm going to have the roads and the trails and things like that, the topography, but the imagery is a lot less detailed. It's lower resolution because of the size of the map and the size of the download. So I would recommend against using these as your only map. Save them as a backup, but don't rely on them, especially if aerial imagery is important to you. So I'm going to save a medium detail map here. I'm just going to use my finger to pull up on this menu to expand it. I recommend naming your maps. Okay, so this one was kind of centered on the town of Fairfield. If I could spell Fairfield would be helpful. There we go. I'm just going to name it Fairfield. Whatever you want to name it, whatever makes sense to you is great. I will name them after towns, rivers or lakes, mountain ranges, hunting units, whatever makes sense to you. Just don't leave them the generic name because once you have 20 maps saved, you're not going to know which one is which. Hit the save button. That's going to start downloading there. Once a map is saved, it will show up with a green box on your map. So you can see I have a few of these green boxes all throughout the state. And you can put maps next to each other, like these couple that I have here out, along the Missouri River and that kind of breaks country. If you say, that medium detail map's not big enough, Jack, I need more area. Create a grid pattern. I do this all the time. Last year I had a doe antelope tag in southeastern Montana. Antelope hunting often involves a lot of driving and glassing and looking for herds. My tag was good for a couple different units, so I saved like 15 different medium detail maps and just created a whole grid, or some people call them like quilting them together. That works perfectly. You'll notice a couple of my maps don't have that green box, but they have a red and white one around them. That means that that map was previously saved on this device, but is no longer available for use. So what does that mean? What does that look like? I'm going to scroll down in my menu here, and you see most of these maps that I had saved have a green check mark next to them. That means good to go, downloaded on this device, ready to work. This one here, the Fort Peck North, has been offloaded. There's a couple ways you could get into this situation. I mentioned earlier my pronghorn hunt from last year. I hunted eastern Montana. I got a pronghorn. Then I drove back to Missoula, and I wasn't planning to hunt that area the rest of the year. So I don't need those maps taking up space on my phone. So if space is a consideration for you, consider offloading maps you don't use. I'm going to use this one that's titled Bob Marshall. It's the only one with the green check mark next to it. If I tap on it, you can see it's got a green box. It's downloaded. But if I tap on those three dots to the right, I can hit remove from device. That will remove that data. So it's not taking up 364 megabytes on my phone's storage, but it saves the boundary box so that I can easily re-download it when I need it. I'm deciding whether I'm going to put in for a buck pronghorn tag in southeastern Montana this year. Not sure. If I do and I draw it on my personal account, I can go in and re-download those 15 maps that I saved last year without having to go through the whole process of aligning them up like I did previously, like I just demonstrated. All I have to do is tap on that downward pointing arrow. So I just did that for that Bob Marshall map, and it's going to re-download that map for me. Another way you could get into a situation where you have a whole bunch of these red and white boxes is if you get a new phone. That's probably the most common way, to be perfectly honest. If you get a new phone, your onX app will transfer over, your membership will. You don't have to buy it again. You just log in with your email and password on your new phone. But your waypoints and everything will transfer over, but your maps will not. You'll have the boundaries, but that physical data doesn't transfer over. So if you get a new phone, you get a new device, you'll have to go through and tap those down arrows to re-download those maps. A less common scenario, but if you're like me right now, I'm on an iPad, but I'm not carrying an iPad out in the woods, certainly not one that's this big, right? I'm gonna use my phone. You can save all your maps on your iPad. Then when you pull up your phone, you'll see those maps on your phone with the red and white checkered, boundary. You'll just have to go in and download them on your phone because it doesn't automatically do that. All right. Couple more things on offline maps. A few of these say update available. I'm gonna tap on this one that says Big Snowies. What that means, what update available means, is something has changed on the map. Some data has changed. We've updated land ownership information, for example. But you have not updated your offline map. So meaning if you were to go there and be offline, you wouldn't have that updated information. To update, there's a couple ways. I can tap the green check mark. That'll start the update. If I go to this one that says Minnesota Camp, I can tap on the 3 dots and hit update. I can also go to the top of this menu. So if I go to where it says offline maps, go all the way to the right. There's 3 dots there. I can hit update all maps and that will queue up those updates. This is something I recommend doing when you think of it, when you have time. You don't have to do it all the time though. Depending on the state, we will update your property ownership. So every county gets updated at least once a year. And we try to match our update schedule with that of the county. So a state like Montana has phenomenal GIS data, and a lot of counties will update like on a monthly cadence. So we're able to update those counties every month. Some states, the counties update once a quarter or twice a year. A lot of them it's once a year. So we're only able to update once a year. But when those updates occur, you'll see that it's available on your offline maps. If you're driving out hunting and it's Saturday morning and you're going to go look for a goblin turkey and you see update available, just go hunting. Don't feel like you've got to stop and update the map. It's still going to work for you. There's just a piece of information that's not updated. Usually it's not fatal. Do it when you think of it. Do it when you get back home. Run that update, but don't let it keep you from going out hunting because it says update available. Couple more tips for offline maps. When you don't have service or you're kind of in and out of service, I recommend putting your phone into airplane mode. Now that will cut off all cell signal to your phone. That's going to be the biggest drain on your battery by and large. Your phone screen and the cell signal are the 2 biggest drains generally. So put your phone into airplane mode. You won't be able to send or receive calls or texts, which to me is a bonus because I don't want to be talking to people when I'm out hunting anyways. If there is something that might be important, I will take a pause from my hunt, turn off airplane mode, see if I've gotten any missed calls or text messages, do what I need to do, put it back into airplane mode. Your location on the map, so your blue location dot like I have here, is determined via the GPS receiver in your phone, not by cell signal. So you're still going to be able to see yourself. You're still going to be able to track yourself as you move. You're still going to be able to mark waypoints and do all of those things you do online. You're able to do those offline. Once you return to service, you take your phone out of airplane mode, everything will sync up again. So any waypoints that you marked, any tracks that you laid, those will sync up with the server and be synced with your account. All right, let's move on from offline maps. If you do have questions, please, again, drop them in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them. Let's go into map tools here. Along the bottom of my screen, the center icon says Tools. I tapped on that. I have a few different options here. Now, we're not going to be able to go into all of these, but what I want to focus on are waypoints. Waypoints are going to be your most commonly used markups. Couple different ways to mark a waypoint. In the field, most often what I use is this button along the top, second from the right, that says Mark My Location. I'm going to tap on that, and that's going to put a waypoint where I am located. So this is what I use when I'm going to go out hunting and I park the truck. I hit Mark My Location so I can find the truck again. When I put up a tree stand or brush in a duck blind, I hit Mark My Location. When I come across a buck rub or an elk wallow, Mark My Location. This time of year, I'm doing a lot of driving, scouting for turkeys. I'm seeing a lot of turkeys. I've been finding a lot of grouse. I hit Mark My Location so I can find those turkeys next week when the season opens, and those grouse that I'm finding right now so that I can go back in September and hopefully find them. One thing I highly recommend everybody do is please customize your waypoints. You'll notice when I hit Mark My Location, it's just a red X. You can customize these. So I'm going to tap on that waypoint, pulls up a menu. The default name is going to be My Location 4925 and a timestamp. 6 months from now, that doesn't mean anything to me. Heck, 6 minutes from now, that might not mean anything to me. So edit that waypoint when you mark it, if you can. If you're on the trail of a bugling elk and you're marking some waypoints, yeah, maybe just try to go after that elk and then come back later and customize them. 9 times out of 10, I have the time to customize a waypoint in the field when I'm on a hunt. So I tapped on it again, hit edit, give it a name. I'm at the onX office. I'm just going to name it office. That's the first thing. Then choose the different waypoint icon. I have 4 on top here. Those are my most recently used ones. If I tap the more button, that plus sign, now I have like 90 different icons to choose from. Everything from elk shed, turkey roost tree, gate, arrow, mineral site, pack, you name it. We don't have an office icon, so I'm going to choose the house one. And then I'm going to scroll down and choose a different color. Now, color coding is one of the ways you can help your future self. We're all about being efficient at onX, right? Help your future self by choosing the name, by choosing the icon, and then by color coding your waypoints. Everybody here does something a little bit different. Personally, I color code mine by species. I hunt just about anything the state of Montana will give me a license to hunt. So I have my deer spots are one color, my bear spots are another color, my turkey spots are another color, waterfowl, antelope. You get the idea. So that when I'm looking at a map and I have about 1,500, 1,600 waypoints on my personal account, I know at a glance, those are elk spots, those are waterfowl spots, those are deer spots, those are bear spots. That's one way to do it. Some people will do it by year. And they'll say, all right, for 2025, all of mine are going to be green. And then in 2026, I'm going to make them yellow. 2027, they're going to be purple. So that you can see change over time. Another way to do it. If I was setting up a deer hunting property, for example, and we only hunted deer there, I would color code, I would maybe have all of my tree stands are one color. All of my, if I'm putting out salt and mineral licks, I'd have those one color. Gates would be a different color. Ground blinds might be a different color. Buck rubs, you get the idea. So you can easily tell that's our tree stands, that's buck rubs, things like that. So I've got my color selected. I've got my icon. I've got it renamed. I'm going to hit save. Now this waypoint is telling me something. Now I know at a glance, hey, it says house. I know it's not where I saw an elk, right? I've got the color. I've got the name. Let's say you want to mark a waypoint at an area where you're not currently. There's a couple ways to do that. So I'm just going to move my map. Let's get up into the rattles. Oh, I already have some waypoints there. That might be confusing. Let's go over here. Let's say I want to go up to this peak here. I can go to tools. Now the second one from the left on the top says add waypoint. Tapping that will place a waypoint in the center of your screen. That may not be where you want it. That's okay. I can still edit it just by tapping on the map. All I'm doing here is tapping my index finger on the map, and it's putting the waypoint wherever I tap. To be more exact, zoom in. Maybe I want to be right here, right? And then go in and edit it, change the icon, do all these different things, right? And hit save. Now, I know I didn't rename it. That's just in the interest of time. Do as I say, not as I do. If you ever want to move a waypoint after it's been placed, you can still do that. Just tap on it, hit edit. Would help if I could tap the right area. And then I can still move it around here. Now you'll see it's keeping the original placement highlighted, and then the new placement is moving around here. So once I hit save, now it's moved. Finally, the last way to mark a waypoint we're going to talk about today is via a long press. So it's a couple of different taps to go into tools, go into add waypoint. If you want to streamline this a bit, you can just put your finger down on the map and hold it for 2 seconds. That's what I just did there. It's called a long press. If you just hold your finger down, it'll place a waypoint where your finger was. That's what I do most of the time when I want to mark a waypoint at a spot where I'm not currently located. I can still edit it. I can still move it around. If you accidentally do this, I do it all the time where I just leave my finger on one spot for too long. You can just hit cancel in the top left corner. That'll discard that. Couple more things with waypoints. If I want to delete one, tap on it. Along the bottom of my screen towards the right, you see a red button that says delete. On your phone, that might be cut off just because it's a smaller screen. You might have to scroll over, but you can hit delete. I can also hit edit and delete if I want, and delete that waypoint. All waypoints, and in fact, all markups on the map can be shared as well. Now, this is, I think, an underutilized feature of the app. So let's say this is a waypoint I want to share with a hunting buddy. Maybe it's, hey man, I went pheasant hunting today and there was a pile of birds in here. You should go there tomorrow and see if you can get some birds. Maybe it's, hey, this is where we're meeting up in the morning. Maybe it's, I got an elk down and need help packing. Here's where I am. I did this last year. I shot an elk, texted a couple buddies, said, here's where I am. I sent them the waypoint where my truck was, so they knew where to park. I sent them the track that I walked in, and we'll go over tracker here in a minute. And I sent them the waypoint of where I had the meat stashed. So my buddy, shout out to Jordan. He's not watching this. He works on our GIS team. Jordan and his dad drove up. They parked right by my truck. They hiked in on the same route I had hiked in to this elk. They met me there and we started packing meat out. It was super slick. Obviously, I had service there. If you don't have cell service, you're not going to be able to do this. But to share a waypoint, tap on the waypoint next to the edit button, tap share, and now you can share with a link or share nearby. Most of the time, you're going to want to share with a link. I'm going to hit next. That's going to open up this text box here. It's not really a text box, but for lack of a better term. And if this was a phone, I would have the option to text message. It's a tablet without a cell card, so I don't have that option. But you can text message a link to a friend or email it or Facebook message or whatever. I'll text a link. It will show up on their phone. They'll click on it. It'll pull up the map on their side and we'll ask them, would you like to add this waypoint to your map? They hit yes. Now that waypoint is viewable to them. They hit no, it's not. What's nice is I own that waypoint. They can't make any changes to it. It's kind of like if you're familiar with using Google Docs, you share a document with somebody and you mark it read only. They can see it, but they can't make any edits to it. So when I send a waypoint to somebody, they can't necessarily then turn around and send it to all their buddies. They can't change the color or change any of the notes I've made or anything like that. It's view only for them. Another way you can share a waypoint is if I go in here and hit share nearby. This is sharing via Bluetooth. So this is useful if you and a friend are both out in the field and, like right now it's shed hunting season. A lot of people will run a tracker when they're shed hunting to see where they hiked. And they'll want to meet up with their buddy who is also shed hunting and compare where each of them covered. If you don't have cell service, you used to be out of luck because you couldn't send a text message. Now with Share Nearby, it is device specific. So it has to be iOS, so iPhone to iPhone, or Android to Android. You can't do Android to iPhone because they haven't gotten together and made those two devices talk to each other. You do have to be within Bluetooth range. So you could, it's like an airdrop. If you've ever done that on an iPhone, airdropped pictures or something, you can airdrop a track or waypoints to somebody. So I use the example of shed hunting. If you're blood trailing and, heaven forbid, you have to start grid searching, you have 2-3 different people, you guys can all do your grid search. If you meet back up, you can all share your tracks with each other to see where everybody went and maybe see if there's any spots that you missed. Again, link is going to be used more often. I mentioned tracker a little bit. Let's talk about that. Bottom right-hand corner of your map, there's a button that says tracker. Tap on that, hit start. Now, anywhere that you move, the app is going to lay down a dotted, or it's more of a dashed light blue line, like a breadcrumb trail everywhere that you've walked or driven. This is another thing that I use. It's kind of a safety thing. I mentioned earlier, I park my truck, I mark the waypoint, change it to the truck icon, then I start my track so that I can find my way back out. Useful for a lot of different things. The obvious safety implications, right? To be able to navigate your way back out. Sometimes it's just fun to see how far you hiked, right? Be like, man, I did 9 miles today. I'll do it anytime I'm blood trailing an animal, no matter what. Even if I've seen the animal drop, I'll run a tracker. I'll do it when I'm hunting a field of, pheasant hunting with my dog. I'll run a track to make sure we've kind of covered the field and hit all the spots I wanted to hit. It's nice because when you save them, just like waypoints, you can share them with somebody. So I mentioned earlier, hauling that elk out, I can send that track to my buddies so they know exactly the easiest way to hike in to get to me. For you whitetail hunters, mark your entry and exit routes to your tree stands, whether it's you take the same route or whether you take different routes, and you can share them with friends. So if I've got a deer camp and I got a buddy coming out and he's never been there, I'll send him all the tree stand waypoints, and I'll also send him the entry routes because, hey, I want you to take this exact route. Otherwise, A, you might get lost. B, you deviate too far from it. You might walk into a swamp, or you might accidentally walk upwind to the bedding area or something like that. So I had a buddy, Jared Larson. You might have seen him on some of our master classes previously. He has a phrase. He says, always be tracking. He runs a track all the time. And you don't always have to save it. You can run a track and at the end of the day, you say, oh, cool, I did 4 miles and whatever. If you don't want that line on your map anymore, you can just discard it. You don't have to save it, but you can't add one after the fact. So I'm gonna hit stop here. If we had moved anywhere, this would allow me to save. Since I'm sitting in an office and haven't moved, it doesn't give me that option. So I'm just gonna hit delete. And tracks can be customized just like waypoints. So change the color, change the style, give them names, do all that with tracks just like you do with your waypoints. Okay. What time are we at? 6:40 here. Okay, let's talk about the location button and compass mode. So I'm going to move the map away from my location. Now, if I want to easily find where I am on the map, in the lower right-hand corner, I'm just going to tap the location button. That's the one that looks like a crosshair. Tap on it, it's going to swing the map back to my location. If I tap it one more time, Now it's going to put me into heads up mode or sight cone mode. Everybody calls it something different. But I've got this blue. Actually, let me back up. It's a little hard to see with that waypoint. I'm going to delete this waypoint just to clear it up. Again, tap my location button, tap it again. Now I've got this, looks kind of like a flashlight coming off of my dot. As I rotate my tablet here, the map is going to rotate with me. So whatever direction my phone is facing or my tablet is up on the map. Normally north is up on the map like we're used to on most paper maps, right? But now whatever direction I'm facing is up. So useful when you're hiking and you need to know which fork in the road to take, or you're driving, we got to turn left or right. I've used this when I've been the passenger in a car. We're going down the highway and, oh, hey, there's a bunch of elk out there. Is that public or private? Pull it up and I can easily tell right side, left side, whose land are they on? I use this a lot when I'm following trails, when I'm following my own tracks, just to make sure I'm kind of staying on the right path and I'm facing the right area. I've been using this also a lot lately when I've been going out scouting for turkeys and I get a gobble and maybe it's so far away I can't see the bird. I will pull up this map and I will put it into this heads up mode and point my phone in the direction of the gobble to try to see, all right, where, is there a terrain feature where this gobbler probably is? Maybe he's on the edge of this field, or there's an opening in the forest, or there's really good, roost trees in this area to try to find, all right, this is the general area this gobbler is. If you want to take it a step further, you can go to compass mode. So in the bottom right-hand corner, above my location button, you see there's an icon there that looks like a compass. It's got the needle on there. Tap on that. That's going to put me into compass mode. So I've got the compass heading at the top of my map, telling me, the degrees. Along the left-hand side, there are yardage markers. Now it's tough to see in town here because of the grid, the street grid, but there's a line emanating from my location dot with hash marks on it. Those major hash marks are shown on the left. 582 yards, 1164, 1745, etc. This is another thing I'll use when scouting for turkeys, to be like, that sounded like it might have been about a quarter mile away. So I can take a look at this and see, look at the distance. I can zoom in still to change those. And I can say, oh yeah, that probably is about right. It's about 322 yards away. That makes sense. Where this tool really gets powerful, in my opinion, is when you use the rangefinder mode. So again, bottom right corner, now there's a button there that looks like a handheld rangefinder. If I tap on that, the bottom half of my line turns red. I have a circle in the center of it, and to the left, there's a waypoint icon that says 323 yards. What this feature does is allows me to drop a remote waypoint with a pretty high level of precision. An example of this, a couple of years ago, I was mule deer hunting. I was hunting kind of some coulee country, some breaky type country. I'm looking over this bottom, and I see a mule deer buck bedded, and he's got some does below him. And I need to stalk closer. So I picked a spot that I thought was going to be within my effective shooting range, looked like a good spot that I could A, not spook the buck, B, I could lay down for a prone shot. I snuck up to that spot, ranged, buck was 270 yards away. He was still bedded. He was kind of facing away from me. There just wasn't a good shot. So I laid there. I ended up laying there for over an hour before he stood up. But while I was laying there, I ranged him a bunch of times, 270, 270, 270. I pulled out my phone. I went into compass mode. I pointed it at the deer and I moved this line. Oops. I'm going to go back. And all I'm doing here to move this line and move this waypoint icon is dragging my finger up and down on the screen. So I've got it pointed at the deer. I'm going to move it to 270. There we are. And I'm going to tap this orange button here. And that's going to mark a waypoint for me. So I had a waypoint where that buck was bedded. After a while, some does started walking kind of by him. He stood up. I shot him. He went over the backside of the ridge. I watched all the does run away. I didn't see him with them. So I felt pretty confident. I had a rock solid rest. I dry fired a bunch, but I still had to go find the deer. The nice part was I had a waypoint icon right where he was standing. So I knew where to start blood trailing. If you've hunted any amount of time, things start looking different once you start moving, whether that's in the West, cross canyon shots, whether it's in timbered country, in the Northeast or the Great Lakes or the South. Excuse me. Right deer hunt in Minnesota, a 70-yard shot's a long shot, but it's all this, kind of aspen regeneration and willows and scrub brush, hazel brush and stuff. Once you climb down from your deer stand, everything looks different. If I can mark a waypoint on where that deer was standing when I shot or when I last saw it, I've got a landmark to shoot for, and I know where to start blood trailing. You can also use this for planting stocks, archery hunting. Hey, there's a bull 500 yards away, but we're going to have to drop out of sight to put a stock on him because I need to get within 50 yards to make an archery shot. Mark a waypoint on where it is so you at least have a landmark to shoot for if you've got to drop, off the backside of a ridge to get the wind right or go through some timber or something like that. I love this feature. It's not something I use every time I hunt, but when I need it, it's great to have. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing on my tablet right now, and I'm going to pull up the map on my computer. So an underutilized, part of the onX system is you get onX on your computer as well as on a mobile device. A lot of people don't know that. So give me one moment to get the zoom switched over here. So to get to the web map, as we call it, on your computer, you just go to our website, onxmaps.com. There's a login button in the upper right-hand corner. It'll ask for your email and password. When you log in, you'll be brought to a map like this, and it's going to look very similar to how it does on your mobile device. You can see, here's that waypoint I just marked. So these maps will sync up with each other. Anything I do on my mobile device, as far as marking waypoints or tracking myself, when I log in on my computer, they show up here, and vice versa. I use my computer for scouting because it's a bigger screen. It's just more convenient for me personally to scout from my computer. If I mark a whole bunch of waypoints on here, when I pull up the map on my phone, there they are. They sync with each other. So the reason I pulled up the map here, one of the reasons, is to show you our different base map and imagery options. So whether you're on a computer or a mobile device, if you go into the lower right-hand corner, there's a button. On mine, it says HYB 2D. Yours might say SAT or Topo, but that is how you can change your base map. So I'm going to go over to the satellite base map here. This should be a familiar view to a lot of folks. It's satellite imagery, aerial imagery, showing you the ground. This is honestly something I don't use a ton in the Mountain West because it doesn't tell me the whole story. It doesn't tell me what the terrain looks like, and sometimes that can be more important than the vegetation. So what I will use is this hybrid map. When I turn on the hybrid map, I get topographic lines. Now we're starting to get more of the picture. I can see where the basins are, where the river bottoms are. That wasn't a basin, that was a mistake of me. Where the peaks are, where the ridge lines are, things like that. Okay, here's a basin. If I only want that info, I can click on the topo map. So that's going to give me, a paper topographic, or it looks like a paper topographic map a lot of us have used before. I'll use this quite often, like right now when I'm bear hunting or soon to be bear hunting, because I'm looking for south facing slopes, because those the snow melts on first, those have the green grass, That's where bears like to hang out this time of year. So I will use this because I can easily tell this is a north facing slope because here's the peak. This is south facing, north facing, right, west facing. I can do that with the hybrid on as well. It's just sometimes a little bit easier to do it with the topo. Something brand new that we have, and this is only on web, is this HD topo. Now this is exciting because when I turn on HD, this is a new data set of ours that's much more exact. So you can take a look. You can even start to see like some individual rocks and boulders here. But when I toggle that, you can tell the difference, just how much more useful and easy it is to read. So this is brand new. You might not have it yet on your side. We're kind of doing a slow rollout, but this will be available to everybody, soon. So check that out if you're interested. I'm gonna leave it turned off for right now because I want to talk about waterways. You'll see I have Allen Creek listed here with some dashed lines coming off of it. Another reason to use the topo or the hybrid map is so that you can more easily see those waterways. If I go to satellite, they don't show up. So if that's important to you, hybrid or topo will highlight those waterways for you. And they're symbolized a little bit differently. A solid creek, especially if it has a name, that's going to be a more reliable water source, meaning there's more likely to be water in it year round. These more minor streams with the dashed lines, those tend to be more seasonal. So this time of year during runoff, they probably got water in them. After a big rainstorm in the summer, likely to have water in them. If we've been in a drought for 2 months and it's September 10th and we haven't gotten any rain, I would not count on water being in there. They might have water, but don't bet your bottom dollar on it. This one, yeah, probably. Allen Creek, more of a permanent stream. These ephemeral seasonal ones, don't bank on being able to fill up your canteen or your water bladder or, water your dog in them. Again, we got to be, sportsmen and women and understand weather patterns. And man, there was just a ton of rain. Yeah, there might be some water in there. Throughout the spring in the northern Rockies, like where we are, snow's melting. Yeah, there's probably going to be some water in there. Come September, if we have 2 months of drought this summer, maybe not. So that's just another reason, I like using the hybrid over everything else, is because it gives me that information as well. All right, moving quickly here. We're almost at an hour and a half. I want to talk about a couple of our imagery options, the leaf off and recent imagery. I'm going to start with recent imagery. I'm going to move to an area with no waypoints. So this recent imagery, this is one of those elite only features. So you do have to have an elite membership to get access to this. But this is satellite imagery that is updated every 2 weeks. So the trade-off with that faster update schedule is it's less detailed. So when I zoom in, I can immediately tell, oh, there's snow there. This is a different image. When I zoom in, you'll see it's not as detailed as our regular satellite imagery is. It's not meant to replace our standard satellite imagery. It's meant to be just another tool in the tool belt. I'm using this a lot right now to check snow levels to see if I can get into my bear spots. Bear season opens next Tuesday, the 15th. I'll probably be chasing turkeys, but once I tag out on turkeys, I'm switching to bears. So I know, hey, there's still a lot of snow in the high country around Missoula. If I go to the valley, it's all gone. People use this in the fall, duck hunters to check water levels. People are using it right now. I know my buddy Lake Pickle down in Mississippi, they were turkey hunting right along the Mississippi River. And I think he said, shortly after they shot that bird, you could expect that area to be under 10 feet of water because it's the time of year when the Mississippi rises. Use it to check in the fall. Pheasant hunters use it to check when the crops are coming out. So you can keep an eye on that. all kinds of different uses for this. And what's neat is you can go back in time. So along the bottom here, I can go back in 2-week increments to see, how things are changing. I can go back to last fall. I can go all the way back to last spring, and see where the snow was at this time last year. If you're planning a bear hunting trip out west, you've never been there, you might want to take a look at, well, for the dates we're going, what did it look like in May of 2024? Every winter's different. This winter, it seems like the snow melts a little bit ahead of where it was last year, at least in a lot of places I've checked. So take it with a grain of salt, but it does give you a little bit of information to see, oh man, that area doesn't typically burn off until June. We might not be able to get in there if we're hunting the second week of May or something like that. So again, that one is an elite only feature. So you do have to upgrade to have access to that. Similarly, our leaf off imagery. I'm going to move the map to Wisconsin here. So leaf off imagery is imagery taken, like it says, when the leaves are off. So you can see the difference there. You can immediately tell evergreen trees from deciduous trees. So this is another, like I said, elite only feature. We don't have it in every state yet. We only have, I believe, 15 states at the present moment. If we don't have it in your state, you'll immediately be able to tell, like Minnesota here, there'll be this kind of filter over the top that says no leaf off imagery available. We're looking to add more states. I'm hoping we're going to add a few more this year. It's largely dependent on if there's good imagery available to us, and if the data source makes it available for public use. So we're not picking on you, Minnesota. We're not saying, we don't care. We just haven't identified a good usable source for us yet. And these are all of these states are east of the Rockies where we have the leaf off imagery. I think we have Kansas. We do. So we have some in the Great Plains, but otherwise we're mostly talking states, eastern deciduous forest, where it makes the most sense for this kind of data. So if we don't have it in your state, I apologize. We're working on adding more states with, of course, the priority eastern half of the country where that data is, not that it's not applicable everywhere, but it makes a bigger impact in those areas. All right. Last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up here is the search feature. So you can search for a number of different things within the app. If you're on a mobile device, the search bar is in the upper right-hand corner. It looks like a magnifying glass. Just tap on that. That will open up the search bar. On the web map, it's in the upper left-hand corner here. So I can search for a landmark. I might search for, I just saw it is the 50th anniversary of Voyageurs National Park. I cannot spell today. Voyageurs National Park in my home state of Minnesota. I'm going to turn off this leaf off imagery, but it brings me to Voyageurs National Park. I could do it for Missoula, Montana. It's going to bring me to Missoula, all right, or at least the general area. I can also search for GPS coordinates. So this is a question we get quite a bit. Hey, I have a set of coordinates. Can I mark a waypoint with those coordinates? Yes, you can. And here's how you do it. You have to either copy and paste if you have them in another document or another program, or type them into the search bar here. I recommend using decimal format. So don't use degrees, minutes, seconds. Don't use UTM. If that's the format they're in, I recommend using a converter. There's all kinds of GPS coordinate converters online. Just Google it and use one of those. For here, I'm just going to type in 45.1234. I think we can go to 5 decimal places. The more decimal places you can put, the more exact it's going to be. Your second number has to be negative. It has to have this minus sign or dash in front of it because we are in the Western Hemisphere. If you don't put that dash mark there, you're going to be put in the Eastern Hemisphere on the other side of the, the prime meridian, and you're going to end up in Europe or Asia or Africa somewhere. So I'm just going to go just type in these coordinates, click on them. Now that is the coordinates I just typed in. If I want to add a waypoint, hit add waypoint and save. Boom goes the dynamite. There is my waypoint on those coordinates. Where did that put us? Oh, in the Beartooth Wilderness. I've never been there. I've heard it's beautiful, very rugged country. Hope to go there sometime. So that's how you can search for coordinates here. You can also search for a landowner name. So if you click on private land, now if I type in, I'm just going to move closer to Missoula here. And I'm just going to type in John Smith, random name. And you'll notice in my results list here, there's a lot of different John Smiths. But you see, they're all in Missoula County, Ravalli County, Mineral County, Granite County. They're all around Missoula. The map, the search function within the map will prioritize results based on where the map is located. So I'm looking at Missoula right now. It's giving me John Smiths that are near Missoula. If I was looking for a John Smith near Detroit, Michigan, I would want to move my map to the Detroit area. Or if I'm looking for someone in New Mexico, move the map to New Mexico, move it to Albuquerque if they're near Albuquerque. You get the idea. Help the map out. It's going to prioritize results based on where the map is centered. From there, I'm not sure which one of these is the right one. I can just click on these results and it'll zoom in on those parcels. Maybe that's the right one. Maybe it's not. If it's not, I'm going to click this back button, select the next one. That's not it. I'll go to the next one. You get the idea. You might have to click on a few to get the right one. But again, if you can give more exact information, John Smith, what's his middle initial? Is John married? Is John's spouse listed on the deed? John and Jane Smith, right? The more information you can give it, the better. But that's how you do a search. Whether it's for landowner, you need to make sure private land is selected. Everything else, you want location selected. Okay, that was a lot of talking, and my goal of keeping this class under an hour and a half has failed yet again. I'm going to pull up my slide deck again. So we do have a discount for folks that don't currently have a membership. So if you don't currently have an onX membership, you can use this promo code app101. That'll save you 30% off your first year of premium or elite. You can type in this website or go to onxmaps.com. And when you go to purchase a membership, there's a spot there to enter a promo code. The promo code does not work on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. They do not accept coupon codes or promo codes. It has to be used on our website. If you have any trouble using App 101 on our website, give us a call or shoot us a text message, or excuse me, not a text message, an email. I should have mentioned it at the top of the hour. Our email address is help@onxmaps.com. That is our customer support email. They will take care of you. They strive to answer every email within 24 business hours. So if you email us tonight, you're going to get an email back tomorrow. Again, it's help@onxmaps.com, whether it's trouble purchasing or any other questions. Couple other ways to learn. We talked about a lot of stuff tonight, went pretty fast. If you want to, kind of read some help articles, go to our website. There's all kinds of tutorials and frequently asked questions there in our help center. Our YouTube channel has some good demos. That's also where all the previous master classes live. They won't show up if they're in a masterclass playlist. So you do have to go to the onX Hunt YouTube channel, click on playlists, then click on the Masterclass playlist. We've been doing these going on 4 years now. You'll see our whole back catalog of Masterclasses, whether they're 101s, whether they're turkey calling, elk calling, how to hunt pheasants, archery hunting, white-tailed deer, bear hunting, backpack hunting, you name it. Check those out. Mention our customer support team. They're phenomenal. Whole bunch of US-based folks. They'll be able to answer any questions you have. Then, of course, future classes. You can always sign up on our website. If you Google onX Hunt Master Classes, should be the first one that pops up. For you folks that are still applying for big game tags out west, later this month, we have a class with our friends at Hunt and Fool breaking down a few of the upcoming draws like Utah, Nevada, some of the Montana ones. I think we'll talk Wyoming as well, the deer and antelope. And then our Hunt Research Tools 101, that's one of those elite benefits you get, which is our draw odds calculator. We'll walk you through how to use that tool later on as well. Let's do our giveaway. So I'm going to ask Travis or Abby, whoever in one of our customer support folks, to post this link in the chat. So if you click on that link, and I'm also going to turn off the chat for folks just so that link doesn't get lost. I'm going to repost it so it's at the bottom. There it is. Thank you. So the link is at the bottom of the chat. Click on that. You'll get entered to win one of these turkey t-shirts of ours. You got to enter by midnight tonight. I will be drawing the winners tomorrow morning, and I will be sending emails out and getting your shirts ordered up. So if you don't get an email from me tomorrow morning, I'm sorry, you're not one of the lucky winners, but we do giveaways at pretty much every class. So sign up for a future one, increase your odds. If you do have trouble with the link, okay, I hear this on every class. Somebody said they couldn't find the link wouldn't work. Some phones have like a security feature in them. It won't let you click on the link in our chat there. Write this down and type it in manually, or copy and paste it into a, Google Chrome or Safari or whatever browser you use. That will pull up the entry form for you if you're not able to click on it. So one more time, copy and paste it or write it down. This will be open until midnight, so you can still enter after the class. This is the link right here in blue. You can't say I didn't give you fair warning that you weren't able to find it. And there we are. And again, it is in the chat as well. Let's do some Q&A. I'm going to see if our lovely customer support team had any ones I should answer live here. We got a couple. All right. How accurate are the property lines within the app? Excellent question. Our property lines are as accurate as the data we get from the county. So I've worked at onX about 7 years now. For a while, I was acquiring parcel data. I was working with county tax assessors and bringing that data in. And whenever I would get data from them, they would send it over with the warning that there is a margin for error. And usually the counties would say it could be off by 50 to 100 feet. Now that is kind of government just making sure they're being safe, right? Most of the time, our property lines are going to be within 5 to 10 feet. GPS technology, civilian GPS technology is limited. Your phone is only going to be accurate to within, I think it's like 5 meters or something like that. So it's not survey grade. Don't use onX if you're in a property boundary dispute with your neighbor. It's a reference tool. Most of the time, it's going to be very, very close. However, if you walk up and there's a barbed wire fence and it looks like it's a couple of feet off, just abide by the fence, right? Or the posted signs. If it's off 100 yards, I have seen that where some unscrupulous landowners will just their fence kind of moves more and more onto BLM land. It's rare, but it happens. That's a case where you might want to say, let me talk with the game warden or the sheriff's deputy to see where the actual line is. Is this fence accurate or not? But to make a long answer short, 5 to 10 feet is our general margin for error on property lines. I have a couple people that are interested in my facial hair. Somebody asked if I grew the mustache to camouflage with the wilderness. And somebody asked what happened to the beard. Well, I previously had a beard if you were on a previous class, and I just decided to shave it off. It was getting a little annoying, frankly. And the mustache, I've had a mustache for about 10 years now. So I grew it when I was a classroom teacher because it just kind of commands some respect with those middle schoolers. Actually, it didn't. They didn't respect me at all, but I tried. So that's where the mustache came from. Somebody asked about folders and a quick overview of them. So folders, right now we are kind of releasing some new capabilities within folders. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this class, but I will pull up the app on my phone just to show you how kind of the basics of folders right now. So give that a moment to pull up. So when you're marking waypoints and making tracks, come on. There we go. So when you're marking waypoints, making tracks, eventually you might want to organize that content somehow. You can put markups into folders. So if I go into my content, which is along the bottom of my screen, I have some folders here already created. Test, Minnesota Deer Camp, Iowa property. I can create a new folder if I want, or I can utilize one of these existing ones. So let's say this waypoint here I have marked. I want to add it to a folder. I tap on it. Along the bottom, I'm going to tap Add to Folder. And I can select more than one if I want. So I have that one selected. I could add these other ones. As I tap on them, they get highlighted. Now I'm going to hit Add to Folder. And I'm just going to add these to this test folder at the top here. Now I have all of those in this test folder. If I go back into my content, click on the test folder, there I've got 4 waypoints in there. Okay, so there's a couple different reasons you might do this. If I have a whole bunch of waypoints I want to share with somebody, I'm the one who does all the work at deer camp and everybody else just shows up when it's hunting season. I bet most deer camps have somebody like that. I could mark all the places we've put up ladder stands and tree stands, marked areas where we've planted food plots, you name it. I can put them all into the folder. I'll name it deer camp or whatever lingo you want to use. I can then share this folder with somebody. So instead of doing one by one, sharing every tree stand, every food plot, put them all into a folder, share that folder with somebody. They can accept it on their end, and they're not getting 15 different text messages with 15 different waypoints. They're getting one. They're all in that folder. It all gets added to their map. The other reason to use a folder, at least the other reason I use it, is so that I can clear my map up easily. I mentioned earlier that I will group all my waypoints by species. So I do that by color, and then I have a folder. So I have an elk folder, a deer folder, an upland folder. I have a miscellaneous folder. I've got a fishing folder, waterfowl, you get it. This time of year, I don't care about waterfowl, pronghorn, upland birds, deer, elk. I care about bears and turkeys. So my deer folder, I can go in and tap a button that says hide on map. It hides all those waypoints. It doesn't delete them, just hides them. I do that with elk, deer, waterfowl, pronghorn, etc. because I don't need that information right now when it clutters up my map. The only waypoints I have turned on right now are my turkey and my bear folders because those are the animals I can hunt in the spring in Montana. Even right now, I have my bear folder turned off because I don't typically think about bear hunting until after hopefully I fill my 2 turkey tags this year. Then I'm gonna turn my turkey folder off and turn bear on because then I'm switching modes to bear. So we are going to be introducing some more collaboration with folders coming out soon. It's not live for everybody yet, at least I don't believe it is, but you will be able to do a collaborative folder where, let's say there is multiple people that pitch in at your deer camp and everybody does work and everybody places stands. I could have a collaborative folder that I share with, Larry, Moe, and Curly. And anytime any one of us makes a change, moves a tree stand, places a new one, it shows up for the rest of us. So it'll automatically be reflected as long as we're all members of that collaborative folder. Not quite ready to demonstrate just yet. Once that's live and available to everybody, I'll do a masterclass on it. Hopefully that's ready to go sometime this summer. So I'll do a specific one on how to use that. All right, that looks like the end of the questions. I want to thank everybody for staying with us. I think this is the longest class ever. I apologize. I got a little long-winded. Thanks again for hanging out tonight. If you do have any questions, let us know, and hope to see you on a future class. And if there's any turkey hunters out there, good luck if your season is going. And if not, hopefully it's here soon, and hope everybody gets out and enjoys it. Have a good night, everybody.